My name is Camila Richardson, and I'm 62 years old. Last Friday morning, I came home from the grocery store to find the locks on my house had been changed. When I knocked on the door of my own home, the home I'd owned for 35 years, my niece Jade answered and told me I couldn't come in. "This isn't your house anymore," Jade said coldly, standing in my doorway wearing my bathrobe. "We've taken legal possession. You need to leave." Behind her, I could see my nephew Sullivan sitting on my couch, eating food from my kitchen, watching my television. My house, my belongings, my life. And they were telling me I couldn't come in. "Jade, what are you talking about?" I said, my voice shaking. "This is my house, let me in." "No," Jade said. She held up a piece of paper. "This is a power of attorney document. You signed it 6 months ago. It gives us legal authority over all your property and finances. We've decided you're not capable of living alone anymore, so we're taking over the house. You need to find somewhere else to live." I stared at that paper, unable to process what I was hearing. "I never signed that. That's not real." "It has your signature," Jade said, "and it's been notarized. It's completely legal. Now please leave before we call the police for trespassing." She closed the door in my face. I stood on my own front porch, the porch I'd swept thousands of times, the porch where I'd welcomed friends and family for decades, and I couldn't get into my own home. My niece and nephew, the 2 young people I'd opened my home to when they had nowhere else to go, had just locked me out of my own house. And that moment, standing on my porch with grocery bags in my hands, staring at the closed door, was when I realized I'd made a terrible mistake. A mistake that had cost me everything. But to understand how I ended up locked out of my own home by the family members I'd tried to help, you need to understand the whole story. You need to know about the day I invited them to move in. You need to know about the months of living together. You need to know about the small warning signs I ignored because I trusted them. And you need to know about what I did next, when I realized that the people I'd trusted had betrayed me in the worst possible way. Before we continue, if you're loving this story, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss our powerful family stories. Give this video a like if you believe family should never betray trust. And drop a comment telling me where you're watching from: United States, United Kingdom, Canada, Jamaica. Let me know so I can see who's with me on this journey. Now, let's get back to the story. 6 months before I was locked out of my own home, I received a phone call from my younger sister, Daphne. She sounded desperate. "Camila, I need to ask you a huge favor," Daphne said. "It's about Jade and Sullivan." Jade and Sullivan were Daphne's adult children, my niece and nephew. Jade was 28 and Sullivan was 26. I'd watched them grow up, though I'd never been particularly close to them since Daphne and I lived in different states. "What's going on?" I asked. "They're both going through hard times right now," Daphne explained. "Jade lost her job 3 months ago and got evicted from her apartment. She's been staying with me, but Camila, she's driving me crazy. She doesn't look for work, she doesn't help around the house, she just sits around all day on her phone." "That doesn't sound good," I said. "And Sullivan just broke up with his girlfriend," Daphne continued. "They were living together and she kicked him out. He's staying with friends right now, but that's not a permanent solution. Camila, I don't know what to do. I can't have both of them living with me. My apartment is too small, but they're my kids. I can't just throw them out on the street." I could hear the stress in Daphne's voice. My sister was 58 and worked as a nurse. She didn't have a lot of extra money or space. "What are you asking me?" I said, though I had a feeling I already knew. "Could they stay with you?" Daphne asked. "Just for a few months, just until they get back on their feet. Camila, you have that big house all by yourself. You have extra bedrooms. It would really help them out." I hesitated. I lived alone in a 4-bedroom house, the house my late husband Marcus and I had bought 35 years ago when we were newlyweds. Marcus had died from a heart attack 10 years ago, and since then, I'd lived alone. It was a big house for one person, and I was retired from my job as a school librarian, so I was home most of the time. Having some company might be nice. But something made me pause. I barely knew Jade and Sullivan. We saw each other at family gatherings once or twice a year, but we weren't close. Did I really want them living in my house? I don't know, Daphne, I said. That's a big ask. Please, Camila, Daphne begged. They're family, and they're going through hard times. They just need a little help to get back on their feet. I wouldn't ask if I had any other option. I thought about it. Family helping family. That's what we did, right? When Marcus died, Daphne had flown out to be with me for a week. When Daphne's husband left her 15 years ago, I'd sent her money to help with the bills. Family took care of each other. Okay, I finally said. They can stay with me, but just for a few months, until they find jobs and save up enough to get their own places. Thank you, Daphne said, relief flooding her voice. Thank you so much, Camila. You're saving my life and theirs. When do they want to move in? I asked. Is next week too soon? Daphne asked. That should have been my first warning sign. The urgency, the pressure, but I didn't see it at the time. Next week is fine, I said. And just like that, I agreed to let my niece and nephew move into my home. The following Saturday, Jade and Sullivan arrived at my house with their belongings. I'd prepared 2 of my spare bedrooms for them, made up the beds with fresh sheets, cleared out closet space, put fresh towels in the bathroom. I wanted them to feel welcome. I wanted them to know I was happy to help family. When they arrived, I was surprised by how much stuff they had. 2 cars full of boxes, suitcases, and bags. For people who were supposedly having financial troubles, they seemed to own a lot of things. Hi, Aunt Camila, Jade said, giving me a quick hug. She was a pretty young woman with long hair and perfect makeup. She was wearing expensive-looking yoga pants and a designer sweatshirt. Hi, Jade, I said. How was the drive? Long, Jade said, but we're here now. Thanks for letting us stay. Sullivan came up behind her, carrying 2 large suitcases. He was tall and thin with a scruffy beard. Hey, Aunt Camila, he said. Where should I put these? I'll show you to your rooms, I said. Over the next hour, I helped them carry their belongings inside and get settled. Jade took the bigger bedroom, the one with the attached bathroom. Sullivan took the smaller bedroom across the hall. Once they were settled, we sat down in the living room to talk about how this arrangement would work. So, I said, I know you're both going through tough times right now. I'm happy to help, but I think we should set some ground rules so we can all live together comfortably. Sure, Jade said, though she was scrolling through her phone as she spoke. First, let's talk about finances, I said. I'm not going to charge you rent since you're family and you're going through hard times, but I do expect you to contribute to groceries and utilities. How does splitting those costs 3 ways sound? Jade looked up from her phone. 3 ways? That doesn't seem fair. You were already living here and paying those bills. Why should we have to pay part of them? I was taken aback. Because you'll be using electricity, water, and eating food, it's only fair to contribute. But we don't have money right now, Sullivan said. That's why we're staying here. We can't afford to pay bills. Then maybe you could contribute in other ways, I suggested. Help with cooking, cleaning, yard work, things like that. I can do that, Sullivan said. Yeah, sure, Jade agreed, though she was back to looking at her phone. Second, I continued, I'd like us to respect each other's space and privacy. This is my home, but I want you to feel comfortable here too. Just communicate with me if you need anything. No problem, Jade said without looking up. And third, I said, this is a temporary arrangement. A few months to help you get back on your feet. So I'd like both of you to actively look for jobs and work toward moving into your own places. Of course, Jade said. We'll start looking right away. Definitely, Sullivan agreed. I felt better after that conversation. We'd established expectations. We'd agreed on how things would work. It would all be fine. That was my second warning sign, how quickly they agreed to everything without really engaging. But I told myself they were just tired from the move. The first week, everything seemed fine. Jade and Sullivan kept to themselves mostly, staying in their rooms. They were quiet. They didn't cause any trouble. But by the second week, I started noticing things. Jade didn't look for work. Every day, she'd sleep until noon, then spend the afternoon watching TV or on her phone. When I'd ask her how the job search was going, she'd say, "I applied to a few places, just waiting to hear back." Sullivan did occasionally look at job listings online, but he never seemed to actually apply to anything. Instead, he spent most of his time playing video games in his room. Neither of them helped with cooking or cleaning like they'd promised. I'd come home from the grocery store to find them sitting on the couch, the kitchen a mess from their lunch, and they wouldn't offer to help put the groceries away. When I'd remind them about contributing to household chores, they'd say, "Oh yeah, sorry, we'll do it later." But later never came. By the third week, I noticed my grocery bill had doubled. Jade and Sullivan ate constantly. Expensive snacks, takeout food they'd order and then leave the containers all over the house, my special coffee that cost $15 a bag. And they never offered to pay for any of it. I tried to talk to them about it. "Guys, I know we talked about you contributing to groceries. My food budget has really gone up since you moved in." "Sorry, Aunt Camila," Jade said. "We're just really broke right now. As soon as we get jobs, we'll pay you back." But they weren't looking for jobs. Not really. By the end of the first month, I was frustrated, but I told myself it was temporary. They'd find work soon. They'd start contributing. I just needed to be patient. That was my third warning sign, and I ignored it. In the second month, Jade's boyfriend Kellen started coming over. I came home one afternoon to find a strange man sitting in my living room, eating chips from my pantry and watching my TV. "Who are you?" I asked. "I'm Kellen," he said. "Jade's boyfriend. She said I could hang out here." "Did she?" I said, annoyed. "Where is Jade?" "In her room," Kellen said. I knocked on Jade's bedroom door. "Jade, can we talk?" She opened the door looking irritated. "What?" "Your boyfriend is here," I said. "You didn't ask me if it was okay to have guests." "He's not a guest," Jade said. "He's my boyfriend. I can have my boyfriend over." "This is my house," I said firmly. "I'd appreciate it if you'd ask me before inviting people over." Jade rolled her eyes. "Fine, can Kellen hang out here?" "For today, yes," I said. "But in the future, please ask first." "Whatever," Jade said, closing the door. After that, Kellen started coming over every day. And he'd stay late, sometimes until 2 or 3 in the morning. I could hear them watching TV, laughing, making noise while I was trying to sleep. When I asked Jade to keep it down at night, she'd say, "We're not being that loud. You're just a light sleeper." Around the same time, Sullivan started having friends over too. Young men I'd never met would show up, go straight to Sullivan's room, and stay for hours. I didn't know what they were doing in there, but I had my suspicions. One day, I smelled something strange coming from Sullivan's room. Like smoke, but not cigarette smoke. I knocked on his door. "Sullivan, what's that smell?" "What smell?" he asked innocently. "It smells like smoke," I said. "Oh, I was burning incense," Sullivan said. "Sorry, I'll open a window." I didn't believe him, but I didn't know how to prove he was lying. By the third month, I was having financial problems. My electric bill had tripled. Jade left lights and the TV on all day. Sullivan kept the air conditioning at 65 degrees because he liked it cold. My water bill had doubled. They both took long showers, sometimes 30 or 40 minutes. My grocery bill was out of control. I was spending $800 a month on food for 3 people when I used to spend $300 for just myself. And I'd started noticing things missing. Small things at first. A $20 bill I'd left on the kitchen counter. Some old jewelry that had been in my dresser drawer. A few DVDs from my collection. I told myself I was misremembering. Maybe I'd spent that 20 and forgotten. Maybe I'd moved the jewelry. Maybe I'd lent those DVDs to someone. But deep down, I knew. Things were disappearing because Jade and Sullivan were taking them. When I tried to talk to them about the bills, they'd say, "We're looking for jobs. We'll pay you back as soon as we start working." But they weren't looking for jobs. They were living in my house for free, eating my food, using my utilities and treating my home like a hotel. I called Daphne to complain. I don't know what to do, I told my sister. They're not contributing anything. They're running up my bills. I think they might be stealing from me. Daphne, this has to end. They need to leave. Please don't kick them out, Daphne begged. Give them a little more time. They're trying, Camila. They're just going through a rough patch. It's been 3 months, I said. This was supposed to be temporary. Just a little longer, Daphne pleaded. Please, they're my kids. They have nowhere else to go. Against my better judgment, I agreed to give them more time. That was my biggest mistake. In the 4th month, Jade came to me with a paper. Aunt Camila, can you sign this? She asked casually, holding out a document. What is it? I asked. It's just a form saying we're living here, Jade said. Mom needs it for some paperwork. Something about insurance or taxes or something. I don't really understand it, but she said you just need to sign it. I looked at the document. It was several pages of dense legal text. The top said something about power of attorney and legal guardianship. This looks like a legal document, I said. I should read it carefully before I sign. It's nothing important, Jade assured me. Just a formality. Mom said you'd know what it was about. Let me call Daphne and ask her, I said, reaching for my phone. She's at work, Jade said quickly. She can't take calls, but she really needs this signed today. Can you just sign it? I'll explain it to you later. Something felt wrong, but Jade was my niece. Daphne was my sister. Why would they lie to me? I'll sign it, I said, but I want to keep a copy. Sure, Jade said. I'll make you a copy after you sign. I signed the document. Jade took it and left. She never gave me a copy. That was the biggest mistake of my life. In the 5th month, Jade and Sullivan's behavior got worse. They started having parties. On weekends, they'd invite 10 or 15 people over without asking me. My house would be full of strangers, drinking my alcohol, which I didn't even drink. They'd bought it with my credit card without asking, making noise until 3 a.m. When I complained, Jade said, "It's not just your house anymore. We live here too. We have a right to have friends over." "It's my house," I said. "My name is on the deed, and your guests here." "Actually," Sullivan said, "legally, we're tenants. We've been living here for 5 months. That establishes tenancy. You can't just kick us out without going through a formal eviction process." I stared at him. "Are you threatening me?" "I'm just explaining your legal obligations," Sullivan said with a smirk. That's when I knew I was in real trouble. I tried to contact a lawyer to find out what my rights were, but I discovered something shocking. My bank account had been drained. Almost $30,000 was missing. I called the bank. "There must be a mistake," I said. "I didn't make these transactions." "According to our records, these withdrawals were authorized by your power of attorney," the bank representative said. "What power of attorney?" I asked. "The one on file," the representative said. "It was submitted 4 months ago. It gives Jade Richardson and Sullivan Richardson full authority over your accounts." My blood ran cold. "That document I signed," I whispered. "I'm sorry, ma'am," the representative said, "but this is a legally binding document. They have full authority over your finances." I hung up and immediately confronted Jade and Sullivan. "You stole my money," I shouted. "That document I signed, it wasn't for insurance. It was a power of attorney. You tricked me." "We didn't trick you," Jade said calmly. "You signed it willingly, and it's completely legal." "I want you out," I said. "Both of you out of my house now." "We're not leaving," Sullivan said. "This is our home now, and legally you can't force us to leave." "This is MY house," I screamed. "Not anymore," Jade said with a cold smile. "We've been reviewing the documents, and actually with the power of attorney we have, we can make decisions about all your property, including this house. So technically, we have more legal right to be here than you do." "That's insane," I said. "You can't steal someone's house." "We're not stealing anything," Sullivan said. "We're taking care of you. You're 62 years old. You're not capable of managing your own affairs. That's what the power of attorney says, that you need someone to manage your property and finances because you can't do it yourself. That's a lie, I said. Maybe, Jade shrugged, but it's notarized and filed with the county, so legally it doesn't matter what you think. I was shaking with rage and fear. I'm calling the police. Go ahead, Sullivan said, but we haven't done anything illegal. You signed the document, it's your signature. You gave us power of attorney. That's not theft, that's you making a legal decision. I called the police anyway, but when the officer arrived and reviewed the situation, he said exactly what Sullivan had predicted. Ma'am, this is a civil matter, not a criminal one, the officer said. If you signed a power of attorney document, that's a legal agreement. You'll need to work this out through the court system. I can't remove them from the property based on a civil dispute. After the police left, I was alone in my living room with Jade and Sullivan, who looked very pleased with themselves. You should probably start looking for a new place to live, Jade said. We're planning some renovations to the house. We'll need you out in the next week or so. You can't kick me out of my own house, I said. Actually, we can, Sullivan said. Power of attorney, remember, we make the decisions now. That night, I barely slept. I was in my own home, but I felt like a prisoner. The two people I'd opened my home to, the two people I'd tried to help, were now trying to steal everything from me. And I didn't know how to stop them. Over the next 2 weeks, Jade and Sullivan made my life miserable. They'd blast music at all hours. They'd accidentally lock me out of rooms in my own house. They'd finish all the food and not buy more, so I had nothing to eat. They were trying to force me to leave voluntarily, so they wouldn't have to officially evict me. But I wasn't leaving. This was my home. I'd lived here for 35 years. I'd raised my children here. My husband had died here. I wasn't going to let these two thieves steal it from me. I contacted a lawyer, a real lawyer this time. She reviewed the power of attorney document I'd signed. This is bad, the lawyer, Ms. Chen, said. This document gives them broad authority over your property and finances. The good news is that power of attorney documents can be challenged if we can prove you didn't understand what you were signing or that there was fraud involved. They told me it was for insurance, I said. They lied to me. That's fraud, Ms. Chen said, but we'll need to prove it. Do you have any witnesses? Any documentation of what they told you? No, I admitted. It was just the three of us. Then this is going to be difficult, Ms. Chen said, but not impossible. We'll file a motion to invalidate the power of attorney. In the meantime, you need to document everything they're doing. Take photos, keep records, save any communications. Build a case that they're not acting in your best interest. I started documenting everything. I took photos of the damage they'd done to my house. I kept receipts showing how much money they'd spent from my account. I wrote down every threat they made, every time they locked me out of a room, every time they stole food from me. But I wasn't fast enough. Last Friday morning, I went to the grocery store. When I came back an hour later, I found the locks had been changed. And that's when Jade answered the door wearing my bathrobe and told me I couldn't come in. That's when she showed me the power of attorney document and told me they'd taken legal possession of my house. That's when I realized I'd lost everything. I stood on my own front porch with grocery bags in my hands, staring at my closed front door, and I didn't know what to do. I'd opened my home to them. I'd given them a place to live when they had nowhere else to go. I'd fed them, sheltered them, tried to help them. And they had thrown me out of it. My own home, my safe place, the house where I'd lived for 35 years, gone. Stolen by the family members I'd trusted. I sat down on my porch steps and I cried because I'd lost everything, and I didn't know if I could get it back. If you're as shocked as I am by what just happened, smash that like button and subscribe. Turn on notifications so you don't miss what happened next. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I sat on my front porch steps for 20 minutes, crying and trying to process what had just happened. My niece and nephew had locked me out of my own house. The house I'd owned for 35 years. The house my late husband and I had bought together. The house where I'd raised my children. Gone. Finally, I pulled myself together enough to think clearly. I couldn't just sit on the porch forever. I needed help. I grabbed my cell phone and called my lawyer, Ms. Chen. Ms. Chen, they changed the locks, I said, my voice shaking. I went to the grocery store, and when I came back, they'd changed the locks on my house. They won't let me in. They say they've taken legal possession. Where are you right now? Ms. Chen asked. I'm sitting on my front porch, I said. Okay, listen to me carefully, Ms. Chen said. Do not leave that property. Stay on the porch. I'm calling the police right now to file a report for illegal eviction. In most states, even with a power of attorney, they can't just lock you out of your primary residence without going through proper legal channels. This might actually work in our favor. Really? I asked, hope flickering in my chest. Yes, Ms. Chen said. They just made a big mistake. Stay where you are. I'll have an officer there within the hour. I hung up and sat on my porch, waiting. Inside my house, I could hear Jade and Sullivan laughing. They were probably celebrating their victory. They had no idea the fight was just beginning. 45 minutes later, a police car pulled up. 2 officers got out, a male officer named Officer Martinez and a female officer named Officer Chen, no relation to my lawyer. Ma'am, are you Camila Richardson? Officer Martinez asked. Yes, I said, standing up. This is my house. I've lived here for 35 years, and my niece and nephew changed the locks while I was at the grocery store. They won't let me in. Your lawyer explained the situation to us, Officer Martinez said. We're going to knock on the door and speak with them. Do you have proof that this is your residence? A deed, utility bills, anything? Everything is inside, I said, but I have my driver's license. It has this address. That's a start, Officer Chen said. The officers walked up to my front door and knocked. After a moment, Sullivan opened it. Can I help you? Sullivan asked, trying to look innocent. We received a report of an illegal eviction, Officer Martinez said. We need to speak with you about the property owner. I'm one of the property managers, Sullivan said smoothly. My sister and I have legal authority over this property through a power of attorney. The woman on the porch, our aunt, has been deemed incapable of managing her own affairs. We've taken over management of the property for her protection. Do you have documentation of this power of attorney? Officer Chen asked. Of course, Sullivan said. He disappeared into the house and returned with the document I'd signed. He showed it to the officers. Officer Martinez reviewed it carefully. This does appear to be a legally executed power of attorney, he said. But ma'am, he looked at me, this doesn't give them the right to lock you out of your primary residence without going through proper eviction proceedings. Even with a power of attorney, you have tenant rights. We're not evicting her, Jade said, appearing in the doorway. We're relocating her to a more appropriate living situation. She's 62 and can't take care of herself properly. We're acting in her best interest. I can take care of myself just fine, I said angrily. This is a scam. They tricked me into signing that document. They told me it was for insurance paperwork. That's not true, Sullivan said calmly. Our aunt is confused. That's one of the reasons we needed to take over her affairs. She's been having memory problems and making poor decisions. I am not confused, I shouted. I don't have memory problems, they're lying. Ma'am, please calm down, Officer Martinez said to me. Then to Sullivan, regardless of the power of attorney, you cannot physically prevent Ms. Richardson from entering her primary residence without going through the legal eviction process. That includes changing the locks. You need to either give her a key or change the locks back. Sullivan and Jade exchanged a look. Fine, Sullivan said. We'll give her a key, but we're the legal managers of this property, and we have the right to set rules about who comes and goes. You have the right to manage the property, Officer Chen said, but she has the right to live in her primary residence. If you want her removed, you need to go through the courts and file for eviction or conservatorship. You can't just lock her out. Jade went inside and came back with a key. She handed it to Officer Martinez, who handed it to me. Thank you, I said, my hand shaking as I took the key. Ms. Richardson, I strongly suggest you contact a lawyer about this power of attorney situation, Officer Martinez said. This is a civil matter that's going to need to be resolved in court. I already have a lawyer, I said. She's working on it. After the officers left, I unlocked my front door and went inside. Jade and Sullivan were sitting on the couch, glaring at me. You just made this harder on yourself, Jade said. We were going to let you leave peacefully. Now it's going to get ugly. It's already ugly, I said. You stole my money and you're trying to steal my house. How much uglier can it get? You have no idea, Sullivan said with a cold smile. I went to my bedroom, the only space in this house that still felt like mine, and locked the door. Then I called Ms. Chen and told her what had happened. Good, Ms. Chen said. They made a mistake by changing the locks. That shows they're not acting in your best interest. They're acting in their own interest. That helps our case. Now, here's what we're going to do. Tomorrow morning, we're filing an emergency motion to invalidate the power of attorney and freeze your accounts so they can't steal any more money. We're also going to request a temporary restraining order to prevent them from taking any further action with your property. How long will that take? I asked. We should get a hearing within a few days, Ms. Chen said. In the meantime, document everything. I mean everything. Take videos, photos, keep a journal of what they do and say. We need to build a strong case that they committed fraud. I will, I promised. That night, I barely slept. I was in my own bedroom, in my own house, but I felt like a prisoner. I could hear Jade and Sullivan talking and laughing in the living room. They were probably planning their next move. But I was planning too. I wasn't going to let them win. Saturday morning, I woke up early and started documenting everything. I took photos of all the damage Jade and Sullivan had done to my house over the past 6 months. There were holes in the walls where Sullivan had hung things without asking. There were stains on the carpet from their parties. There was damage to the furniture. The kitchen was a disaster. They'd broken several of my dishes and never replaced them. I took photos of everything. Then I went through my bank statements and credit card bills, documenting every transaction Jade and Sullivan had made with my money. Over $30,000 withdrawn from my savings. Thousands more charged to my credit cards for things I never bought, expensive clothes, electronics, restaurant meals, alcohol. I made copies of everything and gave them to Ms. Chen. While I was gathering evidence, Jade and Sullivan were doing something too. They were calling people. That afternoon, my daughter Lydia called me. Lydia was 38 and lived in another state with her husband and 2 kids. We talked on the phone once a week, but didn't see each other often. Mom, what's going on? Lydia asked. I just got a call from Jade. She said you've been having memory problems and making concerning decisions. She said you gave them power of attorney because you needed help managing your affairs. Is that true? It's not true at all, I said. Jade and Sullivan tricked me into signing that document. They told me it was for insurance paperwork. Then they stole $30,000 from my bank account and tried to lock me out of my house. Lydia, they're scamming me. Are you sure? Lydia asked cautiously. Mom, I don't want to upset you, but you are getting older. Is it possible you're confused about what you signed? I'm not confused, I said, frustrated. I'm 62, not 92. I don't have memory problems. Your cousins are lying to you. Okay, Lydia said. I believe you. What can I do to help? Can you come stay with me for a few days? I asked. I need someone on my side. I feel outnumbered here. I can't come right now, Lydia said. The kids have school and Tom has work, but I can come next weekend. Will that help? Yes, I said. Please come as soon as you can. After I hung up with Lydia, my son Marcus Jr. called. He was 41 and lived in the same state as me, about 2 hours away. Mom, Jade called me, Marcus Jr. said. She's worried about you. She said you've been acting strange and paranoid. She said you're accusing them of stealing from you when they're just trying to help manage your finances. What's really going on? I explained the whole situation to Marcus Jr. Unlike Lydia, he believed me immediately. I never liked those two, Marcus Jr. said. They've always been entitled and lazy. "Mom, do you want me to come over there and throw them out of your house?" "I wish it were that simple," I said. "But legally, because I signed that power of attorney document, they have certain rights. My lawyer is working on getting it invalidated, but until then, I can't just throw them out." "This is insane," Marcus Jr. said. "How can they just steal your house?" "They haven't stolen it yet," I said. "And I'm going to make sure they don't. But I need you to do something for me. I need you to call Daphne, your aunt. She's the one who asked me to let them stay here in the first place. She needs to know what her kids are doing." "I'll call her right now," Marcus Jr. said. "Mom, hang in there, we're going to fix this." After talking to my children, I felt a little better. At least I had people on my side. I wasn't alone in this fight. Sunday afternoon, there was a knock on my door. When I answered, I found my sister Daphne standing on my porch, looking upset. "Camila, we need to talk," Daphne said. "Come in," I said, stepping aside. We sat down in the living room. Jade and Sullivan were in their rooms, but I knew they could probably hear us. "Marcus Jr. called me yesterday," Daphne said. "He told me what's been going on. Camila, is it true? Did Jade and Sullivan trick you into signing a power of attorney? Did they steal money from you?" "Yes," I said. "All of it is true. I opened my home to them because you asked me to help them, and they repaid me by scamming me." Daphne looked horrified. "I had no idea. When I asked you to let them stay with you, I thought they just needed a temporary place to live. I didn't know they were planning this." "You didn't know?" I asked skeptically. "Daphne, they told me you needed me to sign that document. They said it was for paperwork you needed." "I never asked them to get you to sign anything," Daphne said. "Camila, I swear I didn't know about this. I would never be part of something like this." I wanted to believe her, but I wasn't sure if I could trust anyone anymore. "Jade, Sullivan," Daphne called out. "Get out here now." After a moment, Jade and Sullivan emerged from their rooms, looking annoyed. "What?" Jade asked. "Is it true?" Daphne asked her children. "Did you trick your aunt into signing a power of attorney? Did you steal money from her?" "We didn't steal anything," Sullivan said. "Aunt Camila gave us power of attorney because she needed help managing her affairs. We've been using her money to pay her bills and maintain her property. Everything we've done is legal." "That's a lie," I said. "You spent $30,000 on clothes and electronics and parties. That's not paying my bills." "We needed some things to help us get back on our feet," Jade said. "You said you wanted to help us. Well, we needed money to get started. We were going to pay you back once we got jobs." "You're not looking for jobs," I said. "You've been living here for 6 months, and neither of you has worked a single day." "That's not fair," Jade protested. "We've been trying. It's hard to find work right now." "Enough," Daphne said. She looked at her children with an expression I'd never seen before, deep disappointment. "This is wrong. What you've done to your aunt is wrong. I asked her to help you, and you took advantage of her. I'm ashamed of both of you." "Mom, you don't understand," Sullivan started. "I understand perfectly," Daphne interrupted. "You need to give Camila back her money, all of it. And you need to sign whatever paperwork is necessary to give her back control of her property." "We can't do that," Jade said. "We spent the money, it's gone." "Then you need to figure out how to pay her back," Daphne said. "Get jobs, work, do whatever you have to do, but you're going to make this right." "We're not doing anything," Sullivan said defiantly. "The power of attorney is legal. Aunt Camila signed it. That's not our fault." "You tricked me," I said. "Prove it," Sullivan said with a smirk. Daphne stood up, looking furious. "I'm sorry, Camila. I never should have asked you to take them in. This is my fault." "It's not your fault," I said. "You didn't know they'd do this." "I should have known," Daphne said. "They've been irresponsible their whole lives. I kept making excuses for them, kept bailing them out. I enabled this behavior. And now you're paying the price." Daphne looked at Jade and Sullivan one more time. "I'm done helping you. Figure out your own lives. And if you don't make this right with your aunt, don't bother calling me ever again." She left. After Daphne was gone, Jade turned to me and said, "That didn't change anything. We still have the power of attorney. and we're not leaving." "We'll see about that," I said. Monday morning, Ms. Chen and I went to court for an emergency hearing to challenge the power of attorney. We sat in the courtroom waiting for the judge. Across the aisle, Jade and Sullivan sat with their own lawyer, a young man in an expensive suit who looked far too fancy for what they should have been able to afford. "Where did they get the money for that lawyer?" I whispered to Ms. Chen. "Probably from your bank account," Ms. Chen said grimly. When the judge entered, we all stood. Judge Patricia Wilson was a stern-looking woman in her 60s. She looked at the paperwork in front of her, then looked at all of us. "This is an emergency hearing regarding a power of attorney document," Judge Wilson said. "Ms. Chen, you represent Camila Richardson." "Yes, Your Honor," Ms. Chen said, standing. "We're seeking an emergency order to invalidate a power of attorney document that my client was tricked into signing. We're also requesting an immediate freeze on all of my client's accounts to prevent further theft." "Those are serious allegations," Judge Wilson said. "What evidence do you have that Ms. Richardson was tricked?" Ms. Chen presented our case. She showed the bank statements proving that Jade and Sullivan had withdrawn $30,000 and spent it on personal items rather than on household bills or necessities for me. She showed credit card statements with charges for expensive clothes, electronics, and entertainment. She showed photos of the damage to my house. She showed records of the police being called when Jade and Sullivan changed the locks. Then she called me to testify. "Ms. Richardson, can you tell the court what you were told when you signed this power of attorney document?" Ms. Chen asked. "My niece Jade told me it was for insurance paperwork," I said. "She said my sister Daphne needed me to sign it for some kind of documentation. I asked to read it, but Jade said it wasn't important and I should just sign it. She promised to give me a copy, but she never did." "Did you understand that you were signing a power of attorney document?" Ms. Chen asked. "No," I said. "I had no idea. If I'd known what it really was, I never would have signed it." "Thank you," Ms. Chen said. Then it was the other lawyer's turn. His name was Mr. Drake, and he stood up with a confident smile. "Ms. Richardson, you claim you didn't know what you were signing," Mr. Drake said. "But this is a multi-page legal document. Didn't you read any of it?" "I looked at the first page," I admitted. "But it was full of legal terminology I didn't understand, and my niece assured me it was just a formality." "But you did sign it voluntarily," Mr. Drake pressed. "No one forced you to sign. No one threatened you." "No one forced me physically," I said. "But I was lied to about what I was signing. That's fraud." "Or it's simply a case of you not reading a document carefully before signing it," Mr. Drake said. "Ms. Richardson, my clients have been managing your property and finances for 6 months. During that time, have they paid your utility bills?" "Well, yes," I admitted, "but they also spent $30,000 of my money on themselves." "They spent money that they had legal authority to spend," Mr. Drake said. "The power of attorney gives them broad discretion in managing your affairs. Perhaps you don't agree with all their decisions, but that doesn't make them illegal." I felt my heart sinking. He was making it sound like I was just a confused old woman who regretted a decision I'd made. Judge Wilson listened to both sides, then reviewed the documents carefully. "This is a complicated case," Judge Wilson finally said. "Ms. Richardson, the power of attorney document does appear to have your genuine signature, and it was properly notarized. However, there are concerning allegations of fraud and financial exploitation. I'm going to issue a temporary order freezing all accounts and assets pending a full investigation. Jade Richardson and Sullivan Richardson, you are hereby prohibited from making any further withdrawals or transactions from Camila Richardson's accounts. I'm also ordering a forensic accounting review to determine where all the money went." "Your Honor," Mr. Drake objected, "my clients need access to some funds to pay their living expenses." "They can get jobs," Judge Wilson interrupted. "The freeze stands. We'll have a full hearing in 3 weeks to determine whether this power of attorney should be invalidated. Until then, everyone maintains the status quo. Ms. Richardson, you will continue to live in your home. Jade and Sullivan Richardson, you will also continue to live there, but you are not to interfere with Ms. Richardson's access to the property or her belongings. Is that clear?" "Yes, Your Honor," Ms. Chen said. "Yes, Your Honor," Mr. Drake said reluctantly. We left the courtroom. Ms. Chen turned to me with a cautiously optimistic expression. "This is good," she said. "The judge froze their access to your money. They can't steal anything else. And we got a full hearing scheduled. Camila, we have a real chance of winning this." 3 weeks, I said. "I have to live with them for 3 more weeks." "I know it's hard," Ms. Chen said, "but you can do this. And at the end of those 3 weeks, we're going to get your house and your money back." I wanted to believe her, but 3 weeks living in the same house as the people who'd betrayed me felt like an eternity. When I got home from court, Jade and Sullivan were waiting for me in the living room. They looked furious. "You got our accounts frozen," Jade said angrily. "We can't access any money now. How are we supposed to live?" "Get jobs," I said, echoing what the judge had told them. "This is your fault," Sullivan said. "You didn't have to take this to court. We could have worked this out privately." "Worked it out how?" I asked. "By letting you steal everything I own." "We weren't stealing," Jade insisted. "We were managing your affairs." "By spending $30,000 on yourselves?" I asked. "That's not management, that's theft." "You know what?" Sullivan said, his voice turning cold. "You think you've won because the judge froze the accounts, but you haven't won anything. We still have the power of attorney, and in 3 weeks we're going to prove to that judge that you're incompetent to manage your own affairs. We're going to show that you need us, and when we do, we're going to take everything." "You're going to lose this house," Jade added, "and there's nothing you can do about it." They walked away, leaving me standing alone in my living room. And for the first time, I felt genuinely scared, not just angry or frustrated, scared. Because Jade and Sullivan weren't giving up. They were going to fight me for my house, and I didn't know if I was strong enough to fight back. But I had to try, because this was my home, the home I'd shared with my late husband, the home where I'd raised my children, the home I'd worked my entire life to pay for. And I wasn't going to let anyone take it from me without a fight, even if that fight destroyed me in the process. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. The 3 weeks between the emergency hearing and the full trial were the worst 3 weeks of my life. I was living in my own house, but it felt like a war zone. Jade and Sullivan were furious about having their access to my money cut off, and they were determined to make me pay for taking them to court. They started by making my life as difficult as possible. They'd blast music at 3 a.m. right outside my bedroom door. When I'd ask them to turn it down, they'd say, "We live here too. We have a right to play music in our own home." They'd use all the hot water in the morning, so when I went to shower, there was nothing but cold water. They'd eat all the food in the house and not replace it. They'd accidentally lock me out of the bathroom when I needed to use it. It was psychological warfare. They were trying to break me down. But I wasn't going to break. I was documenting everything. Every time they played loud music at 3 a.m., I recorded it on my phone with a timestamp. Every time they locked me out of a room, I took a photo of the locked door and noted the time. Every time they ate all the food and left me with nothing, I took pictures of the empty refrigerator. Ms. Chen had told me to build a case that they weren't acting in my best interest, so that's exactly what I was doing. 1 week after the emergency hearing, something strange started happening. Jade and Sullivan started bringing people to the house, professional-looking people with clipboards and cameras. "Who are these people?" I asked Jade when I saw a woman in a business suit walking through my living room with a camera. "They're conducting an assessment," Jade said. "For the court case. The judge wants to know if you're capable of living independently, so we hired some professionals to evaluate you and the house." "You can't just bring strangers into my house without my permission," I said. "Actually, we can," Sullivan said. "We're the property managers. We have the right to have the property assessed." The woman with the camera was taking photos of everything: my kitchen, my bathroom, my bedroom. She was documenting the condition of the house. I realized what they were doing. They were trying to build a case that I couldn't take care of myself or my property. They were going to show these photos to the judge and claim the house was in disrepair because I was incompetent. But they made a mistake, because most of the mess and damage in the house was from them, not from me. I followed the woman around with my own camera, taking photos of what she was photographing. And I made sure to document that the damage she was photographing, the holes in the walls, the stains on the carpet, the broken furniture, had all been caused by Jade and Sullivan. After the assessment woman left, another person showed up, a man who introduced himself as Dr. Morrison, a psychologist. "I'm here to conduct a cognitive assessment," Dr. Morrison said, "to evaluate your mental competency." "Who hired you?" I asked. "Your niece and nephew," Dr. Morrison said. "They've expressed concerns about your ability to manage your own affairs. I'm here to conduct some tests to determine your cognitive functioning." "I don't consent to this," I said. "You don't have to consent," Dr. Morrison said. "Your power of attorney holders have the legal authority to request this assessment." I was furious, but I also realized this might work in my favor. If I took the tests and passed them with flying colors, it would prove I was completely competent. It would destroy Jade and Sullivan's argument that I needed them to manage my affairs. "Fine," I said. "Let's do your tests." Dr. Morrison spent 2 hours asking me questions, having me complete puzzles, testing my memory and cognitive abilities. The questions were things like, what year is it? Who is the president? Can you count backward from 100 by sevens? They were easy. I answered every question correctly. When Dr. Morrison was done, he looked at his notes with a slightly puzzled expression. "Well, Ms. Richardson," he said, "your cognitive functioning appears to be completely normal. You scored within the normal range for your age on all assessments. I see no evidence of memory problems, confusion, or cognitive decline." "So I'm competent to manage my own affairs?" I asked pointedly. "Based on this assessment, yes," Dr. Morrison said. "You appear to be fully capable of independent living and decision-making." "Make sure that's in your report," I said. After Dr. Morrison left, I called Ms. Chen and told her what had happened. "That's actually good news," Ms. Chen said. "They tried to prove you're incompetent and failed. That helps our case. But Camila, I need to warn you, they're going to keep trying. They're going to look for any evidence they can use against you. Be very careful about everything you do and say." "I will," I promised. During the second week, my sister Daphne came to stay with me for a few days. She'd told Jade and Sullivan she was done with them after what they'd done to me, but I think part of her still hoped she could convince them to do the right thing. She couldn't. The first night Daphne was there, she tried to talk to Jade in the kitchen. "Jade, honey, this has gone too far," Daphne said. "What you and Sullivan are doing to your aunt, it's wrong. You need to give her back her money and her house. You need to end this." "We can't end it now, Mom," Jade said. "We're in too deep. If we back down now, Aunt Camila is going to press charges against us for fraud. We'll go to jail. The only way out is to win in court and prove we have legal authority." "So you'd rather destroy your aunt's life than admit you were wrong?" Daphne asked. "We didn't do anything wrong," Jade insisted. "Aunt Camila signed the power of attorney. That makes everything we did legal." "You tricked her into signing it," Daphne said. "That's fraud, Jade. That's a crime." "Only if she can prove we tricked her," Jade said. "And she can't. It's her word against ours." I was listening to this conversation from the hallway, and I was recording it on my phone. Later that night, Daphne came to my bedroom, looking devastated. "I'm so sorry, Camila," Daphne said, tears in her eyes. "I raised them. This is my fault. I should have taught them better. I should have held them accountable when they were younger instead of always making excuses for them." "This isn't your fault," I said. "They're adults. They made their own choices." "But I enabled those choices," Daphne said. "Every time they got in trouble, I bailaid them out. Every time they failed at something, I made excuses. I taught them that there were no consequences for bad behavior. And now they think they can do this to you and get away with it." They're not going to get away with it, I said firmly. I'm going to win this case, and when I do, they're going to face consequences for the first time in their lives. I hope so, Daphne said. And Camila, when the trial comes, I'm going to testify for you. I'm going to tell the judge the truth, that I never asked you to sign any power of attorney document, that Jade and Sullivan acted without my knowledge, that they manipulated you. Thank you, I said. That means a lot. It's the least I can do, Daphne said. You opened your home to my children when they needed help, and they betrayed you. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make this right. In the third week, Ms. Chen made a discovery that changed everything. She called me Tuesday morning, her voice excited. Camila, I've been going through the forensic accounting report that the court ordered, and I found something huge. What? I asked. Jade and Sullivan didn't just spend $30,000 of your money on personal items, Ms. Chen said. They also took out a $50,000 home equity loan against your house. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. They did what? They used the power of attorney to take out a loan using your house as collateral, Ms. Chen explained. The loan was approved 6 weeks ago. The money went into a bank account in their names. Where's the money now? I asked. Gone, Ms. Chen said. They spent it. According to the bank records, they spent it on a new car for Jade, expensive electronics, clothes, and they put a $20,000 down payment on a condo they were planning to buy. They were buying a condo, I asked, stunned. Yes, Ms. Chen said. With your money. They were planning to move out of your house and into their own place, a place they bought with money they stole from you. I felt sick. They hadn't just been trying to steal my house. They'd been actively planning their exit strategy, a new home purchased with my money while leaving me with a massive loan to pay off. Can we use this at trial? I asked. Absolutely, Ms. Chen said. This proves they weren't acting in your best interest. They were acting in their own interest. They were stealing from you systematically and planning to leave you with the debt. Camila, this is exactly what we needed. This proves fraud. So we're going to win? I asked, hardly daring to hope. I think we have a very strong case, Ms. Chen said. But I don't want to promise anything until the judge makes a ruling. The trial is in 3 days. We just need to get through 3 more days. 3 more days. I could do 3 more days. The night before the trial, I couldn't sleep. I was too nervous, too anxious about what would happen the next day. Around midnight, I went to the kitchen to get a glass of water. Jade and Sullivan were in the living room, and I could hear them talking. I should have gone back to my room, but I couldn't help myself. I stood in the hallway and listened. Tomorrow's the big day, Sullivan was saying. If we win, we get everything. The house, whatever money she has left, everything. And if we lose? Jade asked. We won't lose, Sullivan said confidently. Our lawyer is good, and we have the power of attorney. That document is legal. She signed it. Even if she claims we tricked her, it's hard to prove fraud without evidence. But what about the home equity loan? Jade asked nervously. The lawyer said that could be a problem. We'll just say we needed the money for house repairs, Sullivan said. For maintaining the property. The judge can't prove we spent it on other things. Yes, he can, I said, stepping into the living room. The forensic accountant tracked every penny. The judge knows you spent it on a car, electronics, and a down payment on a condo. The judge knows you were planning to abandon me with a $50,000 loan while you moved into a new place bought with my money. Jade and Sullivan both jumped, surprised to see me. You were listening to our private conversation, Jade accused. This is my house, I said. I can stand in my own hallway if I want to, but here's what I came to tell you. Tomorrow you're going to lose. The judge is going to see the evidence. He's going to see the bank records, the photos, the recordings. He's going to hear testimony from Daphne, from my children, from Dr. Morrison, who said I'm completely competent. And he's going to see you for what you really are, thieves who took advantage of a family member who tried to help you. You can't prove we did anything wrong, Sullivan said, but he didn't sound confident anymore. I can, I said. I documented everything. Every lie you told, every dollar you stole, every time you tried to make my life miserable. I have evidence, and tomorrow the judge is going to see all of it. Even if you win, Jade said, her voice shaking, you've lost too. You've destroyed our family. Daphne will never forgive you for what you're doing to us. Daphne already knows what you did, I said. She's testifying against you tomorrow. She's going to tell the judge that she never asked me to sign that document, that you acted without her knowledge, that you manipulated me. Your own mother is going to help me prove you committed fraud. Jade's face crumpled. Mom is testifying against us. Yes, I said, because what you did is wrong and she knows it, and tomorrow everyone else is going to know it too. I turned and walked back to my bedroom, leaving Jade and Sullivan standing in the living room looking shell-shocked. I had told them the truth. Tomorrow they were going to lose. And I was finally going to get my home back. The next morning, we all went to court. My daughter Lydia and my son Marcus Jr. had both taken time off work to be there to support me. Daphne was there too, sitting on my side of the courtroom, not with Jade and Sullivan. Judge Wilson entered the courtroom, and the trial began. Ms. Chen presented our case first. She showed the bank records proving Jade and Sullivan had withdrawn $30,000 and spent it on personal items. She showed the records of the home equity loan they'd taken out without my knowledge. She showed the forensic accountant's report tracking exactly where every dollar had gone: cars, electronics, clothes, a down payment on a condo. She showed photos of the damage Jade and Sullivan had done to my house during the 6 months they'd lived there. She showed the police report from when they'd changed the locks and tried to keep me out. She played the recording I'd made of Jade telling her mother that they were in too deep and couldn't back down or they'd face fraud charges. Then she called witnesses. First, Dr. Morrison, the psychologist who'd evaluated me, testified that I'd scored within the normal range on all cognitive assessments and showed no signs of incompetence or cognitive decline. In your professional opinion, Ms. Chen asked, does Ms. Richardson need someone else to manage her affairs? No, Dr. Morrison said clearly. She is fully capable of managing her own affairs independently. Next, Daphne testified. My sister looked nervous as she took the stand, avoiding eye contact with Jade and Sullivan. Ms. Richardson, you're Jade and Sullivan's mother, correct? Ms. Chen asked. Yes, Daphne said quietly. Did you ever ask your sister Camila to sign a power of attorney document? No, Daphne said. Never. I asked her if my children could stay with her temporarily while they got back on their feet. That's all. I never asked her to sign any legal documents. Were you aware that your children had obtained power of attorney over your sister's property and finances? Not until 6 months after it happened, Daphne said. When Camila called me to tell me what they'd done, I had no idea they were planning this. If I'd known, I would have stopped them. In your opinion, were your children acting in your sister's best interest when they spent $80,000 of her money on personal items and a down payment on their own condo? No, Daphne said, tears in her eyes. They were stealing from her, and I'm ashamed that my children would do this to someone who tried to help them. After Daphne finished testifying, she left the courtroom quickly, crying. Next, my children testified. Both Lydia and Marcus Jr. told the judge that I was completely competent, that I'd never shown any signs of needing help managing my affairs, and that Jade and Sullivan had clearly taken advantage of me. Finally, I testified. I told the judge everything, about inviting Jade and Sullivan to live with me to help them out, about them not looking for work or contributing to the household, about Jade asking me to sign a document and telling me it was for insurance, about discovering they'd stolen my money and taken out a loan against my house, about them changing the locks and trying to force me out. When I finished, Mr. Drake, Jade and Sullivan's lawyer, cross-examined me. Ms. Richardson, you claim you didn't know what you were signing when you signed the power of attorney document, Mr. Drake said. But you're an educated woman. You worked as a school librarian for 30 years. Are you saying you couldn't read a legal document? I could read it, I said, but I was told it was something else. I was lied to, that's fraud. Or you simply didn't read carefully and now regret your decision. Mr. Drake suggested. I was tricked, I said firmly. And the evidence proves it. Why would I voluntarily give two people permission to steal $80,000 from me and take out a loan against my house? That makes no sense. The only explanation is that I didn't know what I was signing. Perhaps you trusted them to manage your money, Mr. Drake said. If I trusted them, why would I be here fighting to get my money and my house back? I asked. Mr. Drake didn't have a good answer for that. The next day, it was Jade and Sullivan's turn to present their case. Their lawyer tried to argue that everything they'd done was legal under the power of attorney. He tried to claim that the money they'd spent was for maintenance and upkeep of my property and my well-being. But when Ms. Chen cross-examined them, their story fell apart. Mr. Sullivan Richardson, Ms. Chen said, can you explain why maintaining your aunt's property required you to buy yourself a $25,000 car? The car was for transportation, Sullivan said, to run errands for her. What errands? Ms. Chen asked. Can you provide any receipts or documentation showing you ran errands for your aunt using this car? I don't keep receipts for every little thing, Sullivan mumbled. Can you explain why maintaining the property required you to spend $8,000 on electronics, televisions, video game consoles, computers? Those were for household use, Sullivan said weakly. For whose use? Ms. Chen pressed. Because your aunt testified she doesn't play video games and didn't ask for any of these items. Sullivan didn't have an answer. When Jade testified, Ms. Chen was equally tough on her. Ms. Jade Richardson, can you explain why maintaining your aunt's property required you to put a $20,000 down payment on a condo for yourself? We were planning to move out, Jade said. We thought it would be better for everyone if we had our own place. So you used your aunt's money to buy yourself a home while leaving her with a $50,000 loan to pay off, Ms. Chen asked. We were going to pay her back, Jade said. With what money? Ms. Chen asked. You haven't worked in over a year. Your brother hasn't worked either. Where exactly was this repayment money going to come from? Jade didn't answer. The trial lasted 2 days. When both sides had presented all their evidence and testimony, Judge Wilson said she needed time to review everything and would issue her ruling in 1 week. 1 more week of waiting. 1 more week of living in limbo, not knowing if I'd get my home back or lose everything. But Ms. Chen was optimistic. We presented a strong case, she told me. The evidence clearly shows fraud. I think we're going to win. I wanted to believe her, but I wouldn't feel safe until I heard the judge's ruling. That week was torture. Jade and Sullivan barely spoke to me. They stayed in their rooms most of the time, probably consulting with their lawyer, trying to figure out what to do if they lost. I tried to stay calm and positive. My children called every day to check on me. Daphne called too, apologizing again for what her children had done. No matter what happens, Daphne told me, I want you to know I'm on your side, and I'm never going to forgive Jade and Sullivan for this. They crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. Finally, after 7 agonizing days, Ms. Chen called me. The judge has made her ruling, Ms. Chen said. We need to be in court tomorrow at 2 p.m. to hear it. Do you know what she decided? I asked, my heart pounding. No, Ms. Chen said. The judge doesn't tell the lawyers ahead of time. But Camila, no matter what happens tomorrow, you should be proud. You stood up for yourself. You fought back. That takes courage. I just want my home back, I said. I know, Ms. Chen said. We'll find out tomorrow. That night I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned, thinking about all the possible outcomes. What if the judge ruled in Jade and Sullivan's favor? What if I lost everything? But I also thought about everything I'd done to fight back, the evidence I'd gathered, the recordings I'd made, the witnesses who'd testified for me. I'd done everything I could, and tomorrow I'd find out if it was enough. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. The next afternoon, I walked into the courtroom with Ms. Chen beside me. My hands were shaking. My heart was pounding. This was it. The moment that would determine whether I got my life back or lost everything. My daughter Lydia and my son Marcus Jr. were sitting in the gallery behind me. Daphne was there too, looking as nervous as I felt. Across the aisle, Jade and Sullivan sat with their lawyer, Mr. Drake. They both looked tense, worried. For the first time since this nightmare began, they looked like they might actually lose. Judge Wilson entered the courtroom, and we all stood. "Please be seated," Judge Wilson said. She looked at the papers in front of her for a long moment. Then she looked up at all of us. "This has been a complicated and troubling case," Judge Wilson began. "I've reviewed all the evidence, all the testimony, and all the legal arguments, and I've made my decision." I held my breath. "First, let me address the power of attorney document," Judge Wilson said. "Ms. Jade Richardson and Mr. Sullivan Richardson, your attorney has argued that this document is legally binding because Ms. Camila Richardson signed it voluntarily. And on its face, that appears to be true. The document was properly executed and notarized." My heart sank. Was she going to rule in their favor? "However," Judge Wilson continued, "the law is clear that a power of attorney can be invalidated if it was obtained through fraud, misrepresentation, or undue influence. And in this case, the evidence overwhelmingly shows that this document was obtained through fraud." Hope flickered in my chest. "Ms. Richardson testified that she was told this document was for insurance purposes," Judge Wilson said. "She testified that she asked to read it carefully, but was told it wasn't important and she should just sign it. She testified that she was promised a copy but never received one. And most tellingly, her own sister, your mother, Ms. Richardson and Mr. Richardson, testified that she never asked Ms. Richardson to sign any such document, despite your claims that she had." Judge Wilson looked directly at Jade and Sullivan. "Furthermore, the evidence shows that after obtaining this power of attorney, you did not use it to act in Ms. Richardson's best interest. Instead, you used it to enrich yourselves. You withdrew $30,000 from her savings and spent it on personal items, cars, electronics, clothes, entertainment. You took out a $50,000 home equity loan against her house without her knowledge and used that money to put a down payment on a condo for yourselves." The judge's voice grew stern. "You didn't use this money to pay Ms. Richardson's bills or maintain her property. You used it to buy things for yourselves and to plan your own future, a future that involved leaving Ms. Richardson with a massive debt while you moved into a new home purchased with her money." "Your Honor," Mr. Drake stood up, "my clients were planning to pay Ms. Richardson back." "With what money?" Judge Wilson interrupted. "Neither of your clients has worked in over a year. Neither has made any effort to obtain employment. Neither has made even a token payment toward the money they took. Mr. Drake, this isn't a case of poor financial management. This is a case of systematic theft disguised as legal authority." Mr. Drake sat down, looking defeated. "The evidence also shows," Judge Wilson continued, "that when Ms. Richardson discovered what you were doing and tried to stop you, you changed the locks on her house to prevent her from entering her own home. You tried to force her out of the house she's owned for 35 years. That act alone demonstrates that you were not acting in her best interest." Judge Wilson looked at her papers again, then back at Jade and Sullivan. "Therefore, I am ruling that the power of attorney document is invalid. It was obtained through fraud and misrepresentation. Ms. Camila Richardson's signature on that document does not constitute informed consent. The power of attorney is hereby revoked, effective immediately." I felt tears spring to my eyes. She was invalidating the document. I was getting my rights back. "Furthermore," Judge Wilson continued, "I am ordering Ms. Jade Richardson and Mr. Sullivan Richardson to immediately return all property, funds, and assets that belong to Ms. Camila Richardson. The $30,000 withdrawn from her savings account must be repaid in full. The $50,000 home equity loan must be repaid in full. Any property purchased with Ms. Richardson's money must be sold and the proceeds returned to her." "Your Honor," Mr. Drake stood again, "my clients don't have $80,000 to repay." "Then they'll need to find a way to get it," Judge Wilson said firmly. "They'll need to get jobs. They'll need to sell the car they bought with stolen money. They'll need to sell the electronics. They'll need to forfeit the down payment on the condo, whatever it takes, because that money was stolen and it needs to be returned. Judge Wilson looked at Jade and Sullivan again, and her expression was one of clear disapproval. "I'm also issuing a restraining order," Judge Wilson said. "Ms. Jade Richardson and Mr. Sullivan Richardson, you are hereby prohibited from contacting Ms. Camila Richardson in any way. You are prohibited from entering her property. You are prohibited from accessing any of her accounts or assets. You have 48 hours to remove your belongings from Ms. Richardson's house. After that, if you are found on her property, you will be arrested for trespassing." Jade started crying. Sullivan's face had gone pale. "But Your Honor," Jade said, her voice breaking, "we don't have anywhere else to go. We don't have any money." "You should have thought of that before you stole $80,000 from your aunt," Judge Wilson said coldly. "You are adults. You are capable of working and supporting yourselves. The fact that you chose not to do so is not Ms. Richardson's problem. She opened her home to you when you needed help, and you repaid her kindness by stealing from her and trying to take her house. That is unconscionable." Judge Wilson looked at the papers one more time. "Finally, I am referring this case to the district attorney's office for potential criminal prosecution. The evidence suggests that Ms. Jade Richardson and Mr. Sullivan Richardson may have committed multiple crimes: fraud, theft, elder abuse, and possibly forgery if the notarization of the power of attorney document was not properly conducted. The district attorney will determine whether criminal charges should be filed." Criminal charges. They could go to jail. "This court is adjourned," Judge Wilson said, and she stood and left the courtroom. For a moment, I just sat there in shock. Then Ms. Chen grabbed my hand. "We won," Ms. Chen said, smiling. "Camila, we won. You got your house back. You got your rights back, everything." I started crying, not sad tears, relief tears. Joy tears. My children rushed over and hugged me. "Mom, you did it," Marcus Jr. said. "You beat them." "I can't believe it's over," I said. "It's over," Lydia said. "You're safe now." Across the courtroom, Jade and Sullivan were arguing with their lawyer. I could hear fragments of their conversation. "What do we do now?" Jade was saying, her voice panicked. "You need to find somewhere to stay," Mr. Drake said. "And you need to start making plans to repay that money." "We don't have any money," Sullivan said angrily. "How are we supposed to repay $80,000? "That's not my problem," Mr. Drake said. "I'm a lawyer, not a financial advisor. Figure it out." Daphne walked over to where Jade and Sullivan were standing. I watched as my sister looked at her children with an expression of deep sadness. "You did this to yourselves," Daphne said quietly. "I asked you to make this right. I begged you to give Camila her money back, but you refused. You thought you could get away with stealing from family. Well, now you're going to face the consequences." "Mom, please," Jade begged. "Can we stay with you, just until we figure things out?" "No," Daphne said firmly. "I told you before, I'm done enabling you. You're adults. You need to figure out your own lives, and you need to learn that actions have consequences." Daphne turned and walked away, leaving her children standing alone. 48 hours after the trial, a sheriff's deputy came to my house to supervise Jade and Sullivan's removal of their belongings. I watched from my porch as they loaded boxes and suitcases into Sullivan's car, the expensive car they'd bought with my money, which they'd now have to sell to pay me back. Neither of them looked at me. Neither of them said a word. When they finished loading their things, the sheriff's deputy said, "You need to surrender your keys to the property." Jade handed over her key without a word. Sullivan did the same. Then they got in the car and drove away. And just like that, they were gone, out of my house, out of my life. I stood on my porch for a long time after they left, just looking at my house. My home, the home I'd almost lost. But I hadn't lost it, I'd fought for it, and I'd won. Over the next week, I worked on reclaiming my house. I changed all the locks again. I cleaned out the bedrooms Jade and Sullivan had occupied, getting rid of the mess they'd left behind. I repaired the damage they'd done to the walls and furniture. With each repair, with each change, the house started to feel like mine again. Ms. Chen called me with updates on the financial recovery. "The court has ordered the sale of Sullivan's car," she said. "That should give us about $22,000 toward the debt. They're also liquidating some of the electronics they bought. And they've lost the down payment on the condo. The seller isn't refunding it because Jade and Sullivan backed out of the purchase, so we can claim that $20,000 as part of the restitution." "What about the rest of the money?" I asked. "They still owe me over $30,000. "The court has set up a payment plan," Ms. Chen said. "Both Jade and Sullivan have been ordered to get jobs and pay you $500 per month until the debt is repaid. If they don't comply, they can be held in contempt of court." "Do you think they'll actually pay?" I asked. "If they don't, we can garnish their wages," Ms. Chen said. "Or the district attorney might file criminal charges. Either way, you'll get your money back. It might take time, but you'll get it." I also received a call from the district attorney's office. An attorney named Ms. Parker told me they were considering filing criminal charges against Jade and Sullivan. "We believe we have sufficient evidence to charge them with fraud and theft," Ms. Parker said. "However, I wanted to talk to you first. How do you feel about criminal prosecution?" I thought about it for a long moment. Part of me wanted them to go to jail for what they'd done. But another part of me, the part that remembered them as the children I used to see at family gatherings, felt sad about the whole situation. "I want them to face consequences," I finally said. "But I also want my money back. If prosecuting them criminally means they can't work and pay me back, then maybe that's not the best solution." "That's a valid concern," Ms. Parker said. "Here's what I can offer. We can file the charges but offer them a plea deal. If they agree to fully repay you and complete a certain number of community service hours, we'll reduce the charges to a misdemeanor with probation instead of jail time. That way they face consequences, but they're also able to work and pay you back." "That sounds fair," I said. "I'll proceed with that plan," Ms. Parker said. "I'll keep you updated." 1 month after the trial, I received something in the mail that shocked me. A check from Jade Richardson for $500. There was a note attached, written in Jade's handwriting. "Aunt Camila, I know this doesn't make up for what we did, and I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I wanted you to know that I got a job working at a grocery store. It's not much, but it's honest work. This is my first payment toward what we owe you. I'm going to make all the payments, every month, until the debt is paid off. I'm sorry, I know I should have said that before. I know I should have said it at trial, but I was too ashamed, too scared, too proud. What we did to you was wrong. You opened your home to us when we needed help, and we betrayed you. I'll regret that for the rest of my life. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just wanted you to know that I'm trying to make things right. Jade." I read that note 3 times. Then I put the check in my bank account and filed the note away. I didn't respond to Jade. I wasn't ready to have a relationship with her again. Maybe I never would be. But the fact that she was working and making payments, that was something. It wasn't enough to undo the damage she'd done, but it was a start. 3 months after the trial, Daphne called me. "Camila, I know things have been difficult," Daphne said. "And I know you're still processing everything that happened, but I wanted to invite you to Thanksgiving dinner at my house. Just you, me, Lydia, Marcus Jr., and the grandkids. A small family gathering." "What about Jade and Sullivan?" I asked. "They're not invited," Daphne said firmly. "I told them they're not welcome at family gatherings until they've fully repaid you and made genuine amends. They need to understand that stealing from family has real consequences." "Okay," I said, "I'll come." Thanksgiving at Daphne's house was nice. Quiet, peaceful. My children were there with their families. We ate good food. We talked about normal things, jobs, school, hobbies. No one mentioned Jade or Sullivan. No one talked about the trial or the theft or any of it. For a few hours, I felt like I had my family back. The real family. The people who loved me and wouldn't betray me. After dinner, Daphne and I sat on her porch with coffee. "I'm sorry," Daphne said quietly. I know I've said it before, but I need to say it again. I'm so sorry for asking you to take them in. I'm sorry for what they did. I'm sorry for the pain they caused you. It's not your fault, I said. You didn't know what they were planning. But I should have known what they were capable of, Daphne said. I raised them. I knew they were irresponsible. I knew they were entitled. I should have warned you. I should have protected you. You couldn't have known, I said. And Daphne, you did the right thing in the end. You testified against them. You chose me over them. That means something. They're my children, Daphne said, tears in her eyes. But what they did was unforgivable. I can't enable that behavior. I can't pretend it's okay. If I do, they'll never learn. They'll never change. Maybe they will change, I said. Jade is making her payments. She has a job. Maybe this was the wake-up call she needed. Maybe, Daphne said, not sounding convinced. I hope so, but even if they do change, it doesn't undo what they did to you. No, I agreed. It doesn't. We sat in silence for a moment. Are you okay? Daphne finally asked. Really okay? I am, I said, and I realized it was true. For a while I wasn't. I was angry and hurt and scared, but now I'm okay. I got my house back. I got my money back, most of it anyway. I stood up for myself. I fought back and I won. You did, Daphne said. You're stronger than I ever realized. I had to be, I said, because if I hadn't fought back, they would have taken everything. 6 months after the trial, I received a final payment from Sullivan, a check for $500 with a note. Aunt Camila, this is my 6th payment. I'm working 2 jobs now, one at a warehouse during the day and one delivering food at night. I'm exhausted all the time, but I deserve to be exhausted because I stole from you, and this is the consequence. Jade and I both took the plea deal from the district attorney. We're on probation for 2 years. We have to complete 200 hours of community service, and we have to continue paying you every month until the debt is repaid. It's going to take us years to pay you back. The court calculated that at $1,000 per month, Jade pays $500 and I pay $500. It will take us over 3 years to fully repay the $80,000 we stole, plus interest. 3 years of working 2 jobs, 3 years of living in a tiny apartment, 3 years of probation and community service. That's what our greed cost us. That's what our betrayal of your trust earned us. I don't know if you'll ever forgive us. I don't know if we deserve forgiveness. But I wanted you to know, I understand now what we did. I understand that you opened your home to us when we had nowhere else to go, and we repaid your kindness by trying to steal everything you had. That was evil. There's no other word for it, and I'm ashamed. I'm trying to be better, trying to be the kind of person who deserves your forgiveness. I don't know if I'll ever get there, but I'm trying. Sullivan. I read that letter and felt nothing, not anger, not sadness, not even satisfaction. Just closure. They were paying back what they owed. They were facing consequences. They were learning, finally, that actions have results. That was all I needed. 1 year after the trial, I was sitting on my front porch on a beautiful Saturday afternoon, drinking tea and watching the birds in my yard. My house was mine again, completely, unquestionably mine. The locks were changed. The damage was repaired. The rooms Jade and Sullivan had occupied were now a guest room and a craft room. My bank account was slowly recovering. I'd received $45,000 so far from the sale of Sullivan's car, the liquidation of electronics, the forfeited condo down payment, and a year of monthly payments. I still had $35,000 to go, but it was coming, slowly but steadily. My lawyer, Ms. Chen, had told me that Jade and Sullivan were both working and making their payments on time. They hadn't missed a single one. They were scared to, because if they did, the criminal charges would be reinstated and they'd go to jail. Fear was a powerful motivator. My daughter Lydia came to visit that afternoon. She sat on the porch with me, and we talked about everything and nothing. "Mom, can I ask you something?" Lydia said. "Of course," I said. "Do you think you'll ever forgive Jade and Sullivan?" Lydia asked. I thought about that question for a long time. I don't know, I finally said. Part of me thinks I should. They're family. They're paying me back. They're trying to make amends. But another part of me can't forget what they did. They didn't just steal my money. They tried to steal my home. They tried to take the house where I raised you and your brother, the house I shared with your father. That's not something I can just forget. I don't think you have to forgive them, Lydia said. At least not right away, maybe not ever. Forgiveness is a gift, Mom, and they have to earn it. Maybe in time they will, but you don't owe them forgiveness just because they're family. Thank you, I said. I needed to hear that. We sat in comfortable silence for a while. You know what I realized, I said. This whole experience taught me something important. I spent years being the person who helped everyone. The person who always said yes when family needed something. The person who opened her home and her wallet and never asked for anything in return. You're generous, Lydia said. That's not a bad thing. It's not, I agreed. But I learned that generosity without boundaries is just enabling. I was so focused on being helpful that I didn't protect myself. I didn't ask the hard questions. I didn't set limits. And Jade and Sullivan took advantage of that. But you did set boundaries in the end, Lydia pointed out. You fought back. You took them to court. You won. Yes, I said. And that's the other thing I learned. I learned that I'm stronger than I thought. For a while, when they first locked me out of my house, I felt helpless. I felt like a victim. But then I decided I wasn't going to accept that. I was going to fight. And I did. I'm proud of you, Mom, Lydia said. Not everyone would have had the courage to do what you did. I didn't have a choice, I said. This is my home. I wasn't going to let anyone take it from me. As I sit here today, 1 year after my trial victory, I think about the title of my story. I opened my home to them, and they threw me out of it. It's true. I opened my home to my niece and nephew when they needed help, and they repaid me by trying to steal everything I had. But here's the thing they didn't count on. I fought back. When they changed my locks, I called the police and a lawyer. When they tried to prove I was incompetent, I documented everything and proved they were lying. When they tried to take my house, I took them to court. And I won. Because at the end of the day, I wasn't just fighting for a house. I was fighting for my dignity, my independence, my right to be treated with respect, especially by family. I learned that helping people doesn't mean letting them walk all over you. I learned that being kind doesn't mean being naive. I learned that family can betray you just as easily as strangers, maybe more easily, because you trust them. But I also learned that I'm stronger than I ever knew, that I can stand up for myself, that I can fight back when I'm wronged, that I don't have to accept being a victim. Today, my house is mine, my life is mine, my future is mine. Jade and Sullivan are still paying back what they stole, dollar by dollar. It will take them years. Maybe by the time they finish, they'll have learned something about respect and gratitude and consequences. Or maybe they won't. Maybe they'll just resent me for holding them accountable. I don't really care either way. Because this story isn't about them anymore. It's about me. It's about the woman who opened her home to help family and got betrayed. And then became the woman who took her home back. My name is Camila Richardson. I'm 63 years old. I live in a house I've owned for 35 years. A house I almost lost but fought to keep. And I'm never letting anyone take it from me again. This story proves that. Sparkle's generosity needs boundaries to stay healthy. Sparkle's family can betray you just like anyone else. Sparkle's documentation and evidence are your best weapons. Sparkle's standing up for yourself is not selfish. It's necessary. Sparkle's the legal system can protect you if you fight. Sparkle's consequences teach lessons words never will. Sparkle's you're stronger than you think you are. Sparkle's never let anyone steal your home or dignity. If this story moved you, white heavy checkmark subscribe for more powerful family justice stories. White heavy checkmark smash that like button. White heavy checkmark turn on NOTIFICATUNS. Drop a comment. Did Camila do the right thing by prosecuting them? Should she ever forgive Jade and Sullivan? Where are you watching from? United States, Canada, United Kingdom, Jamaica, South Africa, Australia, Trinidad, Philippines. Remember, if family betrays you, document everything. Get a lawyer immediately. Don't let guilt stop you from protecting yourself. Power of attorney can be invalidated if obtained through fraud. Always read legal documents carefully. Never sign something you don't understand. Family taking advantage is still theft. You have the right to set boundaries. Fighting for what's yours isn't mean, it's necessary. Courts will protect you if you have evidence. Never be ashamed to hold family accountable. Your home is your home. Protect it. Thank you for following Camila's journey from victim to victor.